Hello, Deborah. We haven't seen each other for a while.
Hi, my friend. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I would love to be in Rotterdam, but even if it's just 2 or 3 hours away from me, isn't it great with this technology that we can virtually meet for a coffee?
What a difference. What a difference from, at least I started out in this business, this wasn't even possible. But we stand on the shoulders of technology that's making it happen. And I'm so pleased to have a chance to have a coffee and talk about what we see happening in the market. But, I'm looking in your room, and not only do I like the artwork you have there, I didn't know you played a guitar.
Well, not so often these days, but I used to play it quite a lot. And what I like about it, if I think about the DevOps thing we're talking about today, I mean, if you look at how songs have been produced for decades, was not to put them on notes and then have finding musicians to play them like the old did, but they just had it, for example, a guitar riff, playing that, and then found a good or not, and then added some bass, some drums, some organ, whatever kind of music, brass, and created a song and then put down the notes afterwards. Isn't that agile? Isn't that iteration? Isn't that key?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that innovation has sprung from people that are, looking to drive change and do things differently. And I think you're talking about the Rolling Stones and Keith Richards and what he used to do in terms of the music that he brings along. And when I think about DevOps and the change for organizations that they're making, it's also standing on the shoulders of, the lean movement and the cloud movement and mobility and the agile movement and all of those things to get to where we are today, where we're really utilizing technology that really wasn't number one, affordable or available to the masses like it is today. So, and as innovation continues, it's just an amazing time to be in this business.
That's true. For everybody out there in the air, just let you know. So I'm talking to Deborah Burton, who's the managing director of the DevOps Agile Skills Association.
Yes,
and my name is Brendel. I'm the APMG manager for the EMEA region. I'm also a DevOps DASA ambassador. So pretty much onto the topic, trying to be very close to customers' ears and mouths and hearing what they're saying. Deborah, this is the whole DevOps Agile Skills Association, DASA. It's just started a couple of years ago. So it's actually very young, and there's a competence model which I think has been very well accepted. And I know you travel in the world, and I think the big difference which fascinated me about DASA was the fact that it was kind of an open model in the beginning, not a closed shop, not a book that you had to be religious in considering. Very open with lots of partners. There are hundreds of contributors to the DevOps Agile Skill Association. So if you look at this for now, what is it, 2, 3, 4 years?
Working? Yeah, we launched DASA in 2016. And wow. So, yeah, we've come a long way, baby, they would say. But I think what I love so much about DASA was when we had an eye for looking at what was happening in terms of traditional IT and this new way of working that's coming up, being forced by digital business models that all of us have gotten so used to using. I mean, when you think about the fact that we have been having iPhones and iPads and, Mac computers and good internet and mobility, when you look at that and then you think about how do you get traditional IT to move from the way that they've always worked, which is more of a waterfall approach, to move into a more lean, agile, DevOps way of working. And what we recognized early on, when we're thinking about this DevOps movement, we looked at the fact that when other major transformational technology innovations came, there was always kind of a playbook, or there were material out there that helped people figure it out. I'm sure you remember ITIL. ITIL that's celebrating its over 20-year-old status. But when ITIL came out, those 5 books, they like tamed that wild, wild west of IT. It gave guidance on what to do. Other areas like COVID, TOGIF, they gave guidance on what to do. But with DevOps, that wasn't the case. There were some amazing books out there that companies that were trying to innovate and change the way that they were working, they would read them, things like the DevOps Handbook, things like the Phoenix Project Simulation. But there wasn't real guidance on what to do and why. So that's why we built the DASA competence model. And we looked at 4 skill areas and 8 knowledge areas. We were a part of it.
Yeah. And to tell you what, I mean, I'm when you go around the conference, you probably see this as well. And if you search the net for the term DevOps, and if I always find these same examples, Amazon, Netflix, and a couple of others. Well, some of those might have been in the business before, like Netflix changed from video rentals to video streaming. All very successful approaches. But what I think, just because you mentioned the traditional IT and those who did take ITIL very seriously and built in all the processes. And if you think about agility, and agile means you have a sprint like every 5 minutes, but the change advisory board is only having its meeting every Thursday from 10 to 12 or something. Yeah. So how do you get this out of production, which I think is one of these major problems. So I was always looking for other examples where somebody is not just building a company or a business and recruiting people from the beginning with an agile mindset, but those who've been working traditionally. And did I tell you that I think I told you before that I met.
You met someone. Yeah. They were in which sector?
They were in insurance. There was a very old insurance company, 200 years old, based in Germany, in Cologne, I think. I'm not even sure. I think they're in Cologne. And they had it was a typical thing. 5,500 employees as an insurance, 10% of that is IT. Very typical. So about 550 or 570 employees, I think, in IT. Completely traditional, full with tools that didn't interact with each other. Basically, under pressure, if they don't change, someone else might take this over. So really, really bad situation. And the guy was on a conference where he was invited to talk about some typical project experience on. And what he was talking about was how they changed this old traditional company within 2 years into DevOps teams. Just 2 years. And he was sharing the findings he had. Like, okay, this was definitely pioneers' work. Yes, it's about behavior. It's not about tools and stuff. They were really sick of tools, and that everything was also with the ITIL background. Like, we have an ITIL certified incident management program. You can't certify against ITIL. You can't. It's a best practice. So that's a contradiction in itself. Yeah. All these things like certified by, ITIL certified, it just shows that the only certification you can actually have on this is ISO 20000, because that's a standard, but not on a best practice. Anyway, they found this not suitable for the future, and then they tried to change mindset and attitudes. Yes, that caused fluctuation. Yes, that caused also recruitment of new people, generation changes, all those things, all in 2 years. Yeah, very, very sensitive on getting buy-in. If you imagine that somebody defines his own role for, there are 25 people reporting to me. So if I have to be in a flat DevOps team, how can I accept a student being on eye level? A typical problem. So they overcame all that. Just said you need a long breath, very long breath, because it's a long way. But they made it.
That has to do, and it is achievable. I travel the world, though, and I try to be real with organizations that DevOps is difficult. It is difficult. And it's difficult when, the company that you're describing sounds like innovators in themselves with on the critical path to reinvent themselves, to be able to have high performance IT teams to deliver the services and products that their companies want. But you mentioned some real things that need to be overcome. I met a software manager at a conference one day from a tooling company, and he said to me, the best thing I can do is to have my team replace me and not need me anymore. I know I'm successful when I no longer have a job. But so that is the mindset and the culture of organizations in terms of embracing this change. But like you said, there are a lot of obstacles and things that can get in the way when you have worked in a traditional waterfall siloed approach for years and years, and then suddenly you have new performance metrics. It is a disruptor. It is a game changer. But the cultural aspects and the behavior aspects and the most important resource that any company can have is their people. It's the most important resource anyone can have, their people. And investing in their people and getting them the skill sets and the knowledge areas that they need is the path to building high performance IT. And
wouldn't you also be interested to have more like those examples where traditional companies have applied DevOps? Because what's interesting, what this guy, and I have to add that, yeah. I asked the guy what was his concept to change into this whole 500 IT people into the DevOps teams, and he said, compliment to DASA, he's been on a DASA training. Mm-hmm. He found this was the solution for him as a change manager, to use the competence and only use the competence model and apply it one by one, all principles to actually get this done. And I think people out on the air, if you have examples, if you know about companies that have applied DevOps and they are not in Agile from scratch, let us know. I'm sure Deborah would love to have those and share the successes and give people more recommendations and more hints about how to actually do that.
Well, I think that's that is a very valid point. That right now, when you take a look at where we are today, when the whole DevOps movement was getting fuel and fire, it really started with really brave business unit managers that were going out there and starting with agile teams and putting scrum masters in place and figuring out how to work effectively and build, small chunks of code and software that they could deploy rapidly and make changes. You've heard of the fail fast, get out there and make it happen, right? But by the same token, you really have to be willing to talk about it because we're still in the early adoption phase of DevOps. So now we're seeing more and more companies that have gone through their journeys. You're seeing more enterprise-wide led DevOps. So now people are willing to talk more than they were in the past. In the past, they were trying to figure it out. They didn't necessarily want to share their failures. They didn't want to necessarily put their successes out there because it was a looking at the competitive advantage. But now, as more and more organizations are embracing this new way of working, more and more people are interested in talking about it. And that's one of the things we love about DASA and our platform. You asked me how, where we've come and this open, members driven organization. One of the things I love about DASA is we try to, think global and act local. We are members driven. What does that mean, right? It means that if you want to build your own DASA courseware, build your courseware. If you want to be a training partner, become a training partner with DASA. If you feel that you need, you want to evangelize and talk and drive change in local organizations, you can become an ambassador. I mean, we have so many routes that people can play. They can be parts of our editorial board where you're actually reviewing and looking and assessing what we're building and giving real-time feedback. I mean, a classic example of being members driven is that a lot of our training consulting partners that are out there doing both jobs, right? So they're out there advising, they're trusted advisors to their clients, and at the same time, they have a training aspect of their business that they can also train and bring their people along. They looked at our portfolio the way it stood, and they said, okay, fundamentals, we get it. Practitioner, it's not going to the level that we would expect of a practitioner for us. And then what about the senior leadership? How do you grow people, maintain people, and have a role for them to grow into in terms of leadership? And we thought about that, and being an open organization, we could immediately go in and make the changes, as you know, which we did.
And that has an immediate benefit for those people who need the advice, those who need the training and the skills. And that's what I like about the fact that DASA is really focusing on the competence and not necessarily on technology and tools and all that kind of stuff. People are aware of that. But competence model, I think this is also where people should go on a training and should take time to understand all the, I think even tips and tricks, how to apply the competences and to get what the guy said from this insurance, like how do I get somebody's buy-in who's already thinking about his pension?
Well, I've been doing a series of talks at conferences around the globe, and one of the things I ask is, how do you know what you don't know? How do you know what you don't know? And you can't Google, I don't know what I don't know, because that's not going to help you. How do you know what you don't know? And the way to do that is really figure out where your people are. And one of the things that I think we've done successfully is we've created kind of on our website a complimentary DASA DevOps quick scan. And what it does, it allows individuals to go in and really figure out where they fit in terms of those, skill and knowledge areas. So there are 24 questions, 2 for each of the areas. And at the end of it, they will get their own fingerprint of what their strengths and, unfortunately, where their areas of improvement need to be made, that fingerprint. And that's what people need to understand, because you don't know what you don't know. A lot of people think they know a lot more about a certain area than maybe they actually do. Or they may know more than they thought they knew. So getting a feel is important.
What I've been hearing a lot what people don't know is the conflict between this movement of DevOps. I mean, this DevOps market is growing like 20% a year at least. Yeah? And this conflict of DevOps and the traditional way of outsourcing. And when we know there's hardly any company in the world who does everything on their own. They have different kinds of outsourcing. Now, you can do I'm not talking about DevOps outsourcing. I'm talking about an organization that has a traditional deal with one of the big outsourcing companies where they have, basically taken over all the people, taken over all the assets, divided by something, come up with the price per month, and that is the typical 15% cost reduction for managing IT. That is a freezing point, right? It just freezes a status. It doesn't give any further development when the business model changes or whatever impact comes. It is very hard to initiate a change through these fixed models. So what people are saying is, what do I do when I have this contract, let's say another 4 or 5 years running, which I can't terminate, and how do I make a DevOps-based outsourcing contract where people need to work seamlessly together?
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple of things, and I have run into this type of question discussion on various platforms and at various conferences. And at the end of the day, I think the outsourcing companies understand that there's a new way of working, and they themselves are putting in the capabilities to actually support the DevOps teams because they're actually an integral part of those teams. So that piece is happening. The other piece is happening. Some companies are taking the decision that once some of these contracts do change, because if you're really implementing DevOps, you could have anywhere from 10 teams, and in some cases, they have 350, 500 teams globally, right? So it is a journey to get everybody there. They might wait on specific areas and start the innovation somewhere else. And then when those contracts are coming to an end, if they can't make an agreement with the organization that they're working with, to bring some of that back in. But in most cases, what I'm hearing is that many of these consulting contractors are really doing everything they can to help their clients be successful because they are trusted advisors and have strong relationships.
Well, I think there's a lot of work to do on this area, right? And I mean,
we're in the early days.
I know, early days. But see, one of the reasons is why this traditional outsourcing was always attractive for outsourcers was you could keep it completely intransparent. Yeah, with the DevOps approach, things have to be very transparent. They have to. So I think how this should work, and I've done in my previous career, I've done quite a few outsourcing contracts on the customer side, on those who wanted to outsource, and we invented things like function-based SLAs, and to put a price tag on those instead of a monthly fixed price or this is the rent for the server. We didn't care about the server rent. I only cared about what does the service level cost. But still, that's very static. So it needs to be a couple of steps further than that. And see, maybe also to have an iterative approach here. So you start with one thing, like you define the first 25, 6 sprints or something, make an iteration, continuously do that. So I think the old times of having a static contract for 10 years, they're over. There has to be.
I think that, of course, there are there will need to be new pricing models. But when you take a look at digital business models, one of the things that's attractive about many of them are the pricing and the value of the service that you're getting. And for those of us that are consuming that, and that's all of us, because software runs everything in our worlds, right? You're finding that the right business models with the right pricing approach are reliable and that are working when we expect them to work is key. Because what happens is you, me, and all the other consumers of the world, we have the power. If we're using these devices to run our lives and they're not working and they're not performing, what do? We delete them. And then what do? We go to the App Store, or the Google Store, or whatever, and we read the reviews. And if the reviews are majority not so good, we don't even download them anymore. We go to the ones that are really speaking to good service, good price, good availability. So the industry has to change.
Like Google, that they take out the fake reviews as well. I mean, so that has all his obstacles, right? Yeah, that's very true. Okay, Deborah, I think we have to go. The weekend's coming.
What? We just got started. What? We have to do this again. Again, very soon. Have a nice day. You too. Bye.